Thank you, sir. Now let's move on to the next event. As we heard today in the morning, there are only 5 companies outside Japan who have got, 5 individuals outside Japan who have got the Deming Distinguished Service Award for dissemination and promotion. And today we have the chairman of the Rane Group, Mr. L. Ganesh, who has received this award this year, and we would like to facilitate. I request Mr. Mehtaji to introduce and then.
Okay, so let's now begin with the felicitation function for Mr. L. Ganesh, Chairman of Rane Group. Let me give you a brief history of this award, Deming Award for the overseas individuals. Deming Prize was originally meant for individuals from Japan only. That's Deming Prize. And later on, thanks to the efforts of Dr. Kano, it created an award for people who have promoted Japanese way of TQM to other parts of the world. So that's how this award was created. So there's a distinction between the two, Deming Prize and Deming Distinguished Service Award. It was similar to, at one point of time, only Japanese companies were entitled for Deming Prize for companies, Deming Application Prize. It was again the effort of many Japanese professors, including Dr. Kano. We opened it to others other than Japanese companies, and I think it was 1994 or 95, which first company outside Japan visited that. It was, I think, Florida Power and Light. No, before that it was Philips. So this award is recognizing. So it's my privilege to offer felicitation on behalf of Indian Society for Quality to Mr. Ganesh. So let me share a few things about him. As the chairman of Rane Group, he is known to all of us, not only in India, but around India. Born in 1954, we're familiar with that, educated here in India and then Pennsylvania in USA. Started Rane Engine Valves as a management training and went through the various functions and ultimately took over as a Vice Chairman, Managing Director in 1990 and Vice Chairman of the Rane Group in 1994 and Chairman from 2007 onwards. Exemplary leader that he is, Ganesh showed his mettle in leading his organizations through turbulent times of liberalization in 1990s by demonstrating that Indian auto component companies can manufacture products and adopt a successful work culture that can match the best in the world with persistence, hard work, and immense self-belief. I recall in 1990s, towards the later part, there was a headline news in newspapers that Indian auto component industry is dead. That was the headline. Why? Because the Vistions came and the GM came, then Densos came, Bosch came, and Indian auto component company was basically owned by private entrepreneurs, and this was one of the big multinational consulting companies viewed to the government of India as the end of that. And today what you see is the adoption of TQM by these companies led by Rane Group and TVS Group to begin with, and later on Tata Steel and others, has transformed the Indian auto component industry as a very great driver of growth. They not only compete with the best in the world, they go and set up facilities in Europe and elsewhere in the world. So that's the kind of a contribution Ganesh has made, and thank you very much, Ganesh, for being part of that group of leaders who made that contribution. He achieved this through a strong belief in all-encompassing total quality management principles, concepts and techniques as displayed through his disciplined and visible application in daily work life at Gemba, be it on the marketplace, in the plant, or any other aspect of management. In the true spirit of quality, he shared his experience openly with others. Mr. Ganesh's outstanding achievements of highly satisfactory business results in a very challenging environment amidst multinational competition, and the recognition to his companies in the form of winning Deming application prizes and Deming Grand Prize has motivated many Indian companies to follow similar approach with equally good results. So I know many companies in India, when they want to challenge Deming Prize, they visit Rane Group, they meet with Ganesh and talk to him, how did you do it? And then they start their journey learning from. So he's served as president of ACMA, president of Madras Chamber Management Association, chairman of Confederation of Indian Industry Southern Region, and he's also honorary consul for New Zealand in South India since 1994. Many companies which have won the Deming Prize under his charge, Rane Brake Lining, Rane Engine, Valves, TRW. Rane Group has the largest number of Deming Grand Prize winning companies. I was fortunate in 2012 when I got the Distinguished Service Award. Mr. Ganesh was there winning the Deming Grand Prize. And there were 5 companies from India winning prize. Tata Steel, Deming Grand Prize, Rane Group, Lucas TVS, anybody here? Is Ravichandran here? No. They won the Deming Grand Prize. And then there was Mahindra's winning Deming Prize for the Swaraj division. And then there was SRF for the chemical business. It was remarkable that 5 Indian companies winning the Grand. So the whole dais was full of Indian companies. It was a great achievement. As a dedicated philanthropist, Mr. Ganesh has shown deep commitment to the welfare of the community at large as the trustee of Rane Foundation. He has actively espoused the cause of rural development, education, health, society, and sustainable environment using TQM approaches. Excellent way. TVS and Rane Group both have set an example to the country how TQM can be used for the social cause. In recognition of such contribution, Mr. Ganesh has been awarded the Deming Distinguished Service Award for Dissemination and Promotion overseas. This is an award given to individuals who have made outstanding contributions to the dissemination and promotion of TQM. Let's give a big hand of applause to Mr. Rane.
May I request Mr. L. Ganesh to be on the dais. I also request our GC member, Mr. Kiran Deshmukh, to present. May I request our President ISQ, and I also request Professor Ando San to be on the stage.
Good morning to all of you. Mr. Janak Mehta, Mr. Muthuraman, Professor Ando, Dr. Rajkumar, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this warm felicitation. I feel honored to be recognized by ISQ, one of the leading torchbearers of the quality movement in India. I'm a bit worried about talking too much about TQM because of 2 reasons. Our first and almost sensei for 13 years was Professor Vashio, and he kind of discouraged talking. I remember in the first visits that he used to come, he used to ask a lot of questions, and the moment our people started talking, he would say, "Don't talk, write on the board." So it was something totally new to us at that time. We were used to talking, expressing opinions, but he would say, "No, I don't want to hear you. I want to see, please write." And it took us some time to realize how difficult that was. The other was, I really saw a demonstration of this few years ago when one of our companies got the Deming Award. I was fortunate to go and receive it on behalf of the company. The function was supposed to get over at 5:15, and at 5 o'clock, still, the minister who was supposed to come and participate, the last part, had not yet come to the hall. So I said, "My God, is this once Japanese are going to be late?" So she walked in at 5:01 or something like that and spoke exactly for 4 minutes. I couldn't believe it. She really finished at something like 5:06 or 5:07, and they did conclude the function at 5:15. Then I realized how important it is and how time is so important. So I hope that I will stick to my time today given to me, although it's slightly longer than what Japanese would give. I would like to share my experience of our TQM journey and the learnings of the last 2 decades. Not getting into too much of how we implemented TQM, because to this audience, that is not required. That is almost like carrying coal to Newcastle. And also, I realize in this 2-day conference, after me, there are going to be a galaxy of speakers who are far better experts than I am in TQM. Therefore, I just limit myself to why we chose TQM as a path and what are the challenges we faced and my own personal learnings out of this journey. Before I start this, I would also like to mention and thank Professor Ando, who also was one of our sensei, especially on strategy. I think he came for a few years and helped us in this particular aspect of strategy management, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Ando. Commencing in the early 1990s, as Mr. Mehta mentioned, there were dramatic shifts in the policy environment in India. An economy which had been closed for nearly 45 years suddenly opened up, and during this time, many foreign companies started looking at India very seriously, and this was a big threat and an opportunity for India. For us in the Rane group, the effects of liberalization meant a lot of new competition, and major car companies, especially like Maruti Suzuki, started looking at India very seriously and expanding their operations here. This significantly increased the bar. The expectation of these companies were much more and much higher than what we were used to serving so far in the Indian market. I also had the opportunity to attend one of the JUICE seminars organized by CII, which Mr. Mehta was mentioning about, and I found this 1 week in Japan quite an eye-opener. And one message out of this, which always stuck to my mind even till today, is that in one of the sessions, there was this, I forget his name, but there was this gentleman, I think from National TV or Panasonic TV company in Japan. And he asked a question during his presentation. Suppose our quality level is 1 ppm. Do you think it's good or it is not good enough? So all of us, my colleagues from India, for us 1 ppm is something which we didn't understand. We used to talk in percentages at that time, and ppm itself was a new concept. So we all unanimously said it's fantastic. 1 ppm. He said, not so. Think carefully. Suppose we make 1 out of million TVs which doesn't work, and you are the customer of the TV, what would you think of our brand? That was the kind of obsession, if I can call it. That was the kind of phenomenal belief in quality, and that kind of left an impression in my mind even till today. We had, in the meanwhile, started several initiatives, the group, but not in an integrated way. We started some lean manufacturing, getting a consultant from UK. We started some quality movement, some automation, productivity, but not in an integrated way. So in 1999, the senior management of Rane got together for a 2-day offsite kind of a strategic session where we discussed this new scenario and what we need to do in terms of meeting the challenges. We realized that to be on par with global standards, there were major improvements required in quality, cost, delivery, performance, all aspects of our business. But we did not had no clue how to do it. And at that time, in December 99, we had invited for a 1-day workshop Professor Vashio from Japan. And it was, in my view, a watershed day for the Rane Group, because at the end of that day, all our senior management who participated, maybe we were about 12 of us, were convinced that this is the way to go. And we requested Professor Vashio maybe a couple of weeks later to be our sensei. The next 2 decades have been very eventful and progressive for the group. Our sales have grown from something like 50 million at that time to about 700 million US dollars. Our exports, importantly, has grown from almost just about $5 or $6 million at that time to about $150 million last year. Conferment of Deming Prize, which Mr. Mehta already mentioned, for 5 of our companies, and the Deming Grand Prize were milestones which motivated us to say this journey is something worth pursuing. It has been a phenomenal journey of unlearning and learning for the group and me personally. I just want to share some of them with you today. Some cultural aspects of introducing TQM in India. One was the first problem or challenge we faced, where there were many non-believers in TQM at that time. I mean, TQM today is something different. After 20 years in India, many companies have followed, although all of them might not have gone to challenge the Deming, they have followed principles of TQM. So TQM is a well-known phenomenon today, but at that time it was not. There were many non-believers in our own company and our group at very senior levels who felt that what is this TQM all about? I mean, we know how to manage and we don't need this new philosophy. So it was quite difficult. We adopted a method that we said if the attitude is there and the attitude is positive, we will do training and retraining again and again. And we converted a few people from non-believers to believers at that time. But we also had to let go of some total non-believers who would refuse to get trained and said, this is not the way I would like to be. Then we said, then, it's better that we part company. So we had to even do that. Then the Japanese culture and the difference in India, one is the hierarchy and the empowerment. I mean, especially in the shop floor, we were not used to this kind of empowerment that the Japanese believed in. So it took quite a while for us to empower our people on the shop floor. But for the Japanese, it was something natural. There were several incidents which I'll share where they showed us that this is a natural thing to do. But for us, there was a mental barrier to accept that. Second is the group dynamics. Group dynamics in India was relatively unknown except for social functions. I mean, we used to get together only for a function like Dasara, or a function like Vijayadashmi, which is very popular in South, as you know. The employees used to get together, or for an annual day. We're not used to this concept of group dynamics for day-to-day working. And if at all, the belief in those days was group dynamics has to be motivated by rewards. Everything was brought down to what do I get for doing this, rewards kind of thing. From that to convert ourselves to a culture of group dynamics, that group dynamics is always better to achieve something than an individual, it took many, many years. And many years for us to convince ourselves first and then convince the people on the shop floor. Unions were a big resistance. I mean, unions felt that this is an imposition and this is almost a way of controlling us. You are finding new ways of controlling us. With little realizing we were actually trying to empower the employees, but the employees, when they feel empowered, unions don't feel empowered. You all know that. So that was a big challenge. The discipline and, I mean, safety, for example, safety, of course, I must confess in the initial years, our focus was not so much on safety. In fact, only in the last few years, we have really started focusing on safety in a formal and structured manner. But some elements of safety, as you know, are there in TQM, and we started talking about safety. It was extremely difficult, like the example Mr. Mehta mentioned about, and Mr. Muthuraman mentioned about Tata Steel. The cultural environment outside is very important. And one of the, I remember a senior executive in Honda Motor Company with whom I used to interact, asked me one question: how do you teach or how do you implement safety in India when people come to work hanging outside a bus? Honestly, I did not have an answer for that. And he was not being cynical. He was genuinely concerned. How do you teach them safety when outside the factory, their environment does not care about safety? So this is something which cultural aspect, the discipline in life and the discipline inside work life are something which has to be blended. Communication, as I said, oral and written, we believed a lot in oral communication. The Japanese method believes, as you all know, in written communication, charts, visual controls, etc. And that was a major shift. Consensus. To build consensus means a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, and it doesn't come easily when you think that you know better than the others. That humility of knowing that you don't know everything itself took a lot of time for all of us. And collective good versus individual recognition. I said, as we were used to somewhat a Western culture, we have brought up the colonial way, individual recognition from younger days, competition right from college, is more important for us than a group recognition. Whereas the Japanese method talks about group, a QCC, a QIT being recognized, not an individual. And that was something of a cultural shift. Perseverance, of course, Japanese TQM does not give results overnight. It takes a long time, as all of you know, and one has to really persevere to see the results. It cannot be achieved in quick time. Who drives productivity in an organization is something which was a learning for all of us. It was a revelation when we had to battle for productivity, and productivity is almost a bad word in those days in Indian industry. 20 years later, many quality circles in our plants do quality improvement projects, QC projects, to improve productivity without us driving it. They come and make a QC presentation and say that we have improved productivity by 150%. We have reduced 2 people on the line. This is shop floor people doing a project to improve and reduce manpower in the shop floor. This is something which took us many, many years to learn. The most satisfying part was dissemination. We felt that the quality is something akin to our Hindu philosophy. It's not something which is just for individual, but the joy and the real learning is in sharing. So we tried our level best to share with our suppliers, with all our employees. We had induction courses, 1 week training on TQM for any new person who joined the group, whether it was a graduate engineer or even in the middle level who joined the group. So sharing of this with employees, suppliers, almost about 200 companies have visited us in this time to look at TQM demonstration. And we felt quite happy and almost privileged, I would say, to share this knowledge, because this is not something which is just for us. This is going to be something which the whole society can benefit from. And many of our partners, suppliers have adopted, if not challenged the Deming price, they have adopted some of the core elements of TQM and improved themselves and helped us to improve our performance. We did use some of these TQM principles in our CSR activities. Two major CSR in the last 10 years we have done is establishing a polytechnic and a school in Trichy. And we try to use these principles not only in the project execution, the way we design these institutions, but we have introduced elements of TQM in our teaching also. Not only in the polytechnic, we add value by teaching our diploma holders some elements of TQM. In the school, we have started some basic elements of TQM even for children, because we realize that in Japan, discipline especially comes because children are taught at a very young age, and it is not something which you can learn after you become middle-aged. So this is something which we see, and we see the fruits of it even in institutions like a school. We are able to see the benefits of TQM. Some of my own personal learnings and takeaways. Here I would like to share some personal notes which somehow left an impression in my mind about the TQM journey. The alignment of vision goals through the organization. I mean, earlier, 20 years earlier, I think while the promoters in a family-owned company or professional chief executives in a professionally managed company had certain vision, but I wonder how many people in the organization really have even heard of that vision or understood that vision. Where the goals really aligned to that vision, and more important, was the entire organization aligned to that? Not really. So while we were wishing and dreaming, and all promoters have a vision, it's not to say that only TQM brought the concept of vision, but how do you articulate that vision? How do you convert that vision into goals? And how do you align the whole organization is something really which we learned from TQM. And for me, that was one of the significant learnings. Investment in people. While I started talking about non-believers, we realized that if there were 10 non-believers, 7 or 8 of them could be converted. I know conversion is a bit of a strong and sometimes a negative connotation, but we could change them, at least 7 or 8 of them, by training, retraining, and talking to them, demonstrating to them, taking them to other companies in industry who have achieved through TQM. Many of them changed. So that investment of time and resources in people was very important. You cannot expect somebody who's grown up in a different culture and a different education system to adopt TQM overnight, and no point getting frustrated with that. There could be a few who will not change, but most of them will change with investment. The trust in people. I remember in my early days when I used to interact with Dr. Vashio quite a bit and walk around with him in the shop floor. He once picked up a root card, what we use in manufacturing, in one of the engine valve plants. The root card is a card which kind of traces the movement of batches from operation to operation. And he showed me, he said, "Do you know, Ganesh-san, 6 people are signing this root card." Why 6 people are signing this root card? So for me, it was very natural. I said, the operator who has done that operation signs off, and then his immediate supervisor, then production head, etc., etc. He said, "You have only one operator doing the operation, and you have 5 people signing the root card. I want this root card to be changed, the design. I want to take away all the 6 signatures." For us, it was a big shock. So the underlying message was, why don't you trust that man who's doing the operation? Why do you need 5 people to sign off something which one person has done? It's not just productivity, it is the trust, and that is a very powerful message. For the trust in people is something which I learned in this journey. The dignity of people. I want to share one example with you. One of our presidents was walking in a shop floor of one of the older plants in the group at that time, started in the 1960s. It was almost 40 years old at that time, 43 years old. And he went and complimented an operator for suggesting a change in the tool design, which cost at that time, if I remember, something like 1.4 lakhs, but improved the productivity of a CNC machine, and those days CNC machines were much more expensive, by something like 1.5 times or 1.8 times. He went and complimented this operator and asked him, "How long have you been in this company?" So this operator said, "Sir, I've been here for some 28 years. So he said, "How long have you been using the CNC machine?" He said, "Some 10, 12 years. Why didn't you think of it before?" You know, this man's answer to the president of the company was stunning. He said, "Nobody asked me so far." So that dignity in people, once you invest in that dignity, the kind of participation, the kind of ownership. I remember one of the most poignant moments for me after winning the Deming Grand Prize in Rane, Madras. I got a box of sweets from one of the operators who was retired 2 years earlier to that. He was there when we won the Deming Prize. He had already retired by the time we got the Deming Grand Prize. He sent me a box of sweets to my office and said, "I want to congratulate you and the company for getting the Deming Grand Prize." That is, once you elevate and believe in the dignity of people, that is the kind of performance, that is the kind of thought process that comes into people in whom we never thought we can get that kind of a response. Data versus opinions, we talked about it. I think we had been brought up in a culture and in a belief, especially if you're educated and you're senior in the company, your opinions matter. You set up a new plant, the quality level is very low, rejections are very high. You ask, in those days I'm saying, you ask the plant head, he will say, "Nowadays our workers are no good, sir. It's not like the olden times." Little realizing it is not the workers, but it is the systems that you have failed. We as collectively, as management, have failed to transplant proper systems rather than saying it is the workers. So that opinion versus really, if you study the data, it shows something entirely different. It's a fantastic learning through TQM that data matters, opinions don't matter. No shortcuts, as I said. It's a long journey. It's a journey where you need patience and perseverance, and that is the only way to achieve results. Sustenance is more important than implementation. Now, this is something which we, especially after reaching a milestone like a Deming Prize, you tend to become a little complacent. And we all kind of lay back and say that, okay, we have achieved the Deming now, we have been recognized and everybody has said good things about us. But then TQM practices can go down much faster than you can learn. So how do you sustain it? We in our group have evolved a lot of systems, both at the plant level, company level, and the group level. Even today, we go and do audits in the companies on a continuous basis to evolve systems in such a way that you can sustain those practices. That is something which I learned during this TQM journey. It has been a significant experience for me. I strongly advocate TQM for Indian companies. For the foreseeable future, technology is not going to be our contribution from India. I honestly believe operational excellence can be used to grow our economy, especially with a dominant contribution of manufacturing. We need to mature at least another decade before we can claim to be technology contributors to the world. But in the meanwhile, there is a phenomenal window of opportunity for manufacturing for us due to various reasons which you are aware of. So TQM will be a fantastic tool to improve our operational excellence and benefit from this window of opportunity which could be there for the next decade or so. The geopolitical conditions have created this opportunity. We should capitalize on this. TQM can be a powerful tool, and the real benefit can be realized when we adopt this as a way of life. Let's not look at it just as a tool for the shop floor. It has to be a way of life. I think Mr. Muthuraman elaborated on this. I entirely agree with him. It cannot be just a tool or a technique. It has been a journey. Deming was a milestone for our companies and for me personally, but it is only a journey and there's no end to it, and there are new things to learn. I saw today your theme is going to be digitalization and sustenance, innovation. So there are many things, Industry 4.0 is now on the horizon. So this is a continuous journey. Let's not stop and say we have already achieved something. That is not going to help us. I also commend the ISQ for their service in quality movement. It is a very critical mission, and I wish you all the very best in your efforts. Thank you once again for this felicitation.
It was fantastic once again, particularly for me, sir, to listen to you, and particularly your experiences sharing on the empowerment of people, group dynamics, and cultural shift, dissemination, and finally about the operational excellence which will help to grow our economy. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for being with us today and accepting our felicitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajkumar, for chairing this session, and thanks to the seniors for putting the perspective clear in front of us, telling us what are the challenges going to be, and also sharing with us your experiences of how to handle those and keep going forward. Thank you to all the speakers in the first session.